Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. We're going to start the next section, dealing with film and media financing. So let's be like in third grade. Let's put our thinking caps on, okay? Put our thinking cap. What is a thinking cap anyway? I don't know. So, about to introduce you to Michael Cain. So if you could come on in. Turn your chairs. Oops. He's okay. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker, and we're going to be dealing, like I said, with film financing, media financing. And Michael's a great guy, and I really appreciate you coming out, Michael. And so anyway, Michael has produced and executive produced over 20 feature-length films for HBO and Showtime. Michael also founded the nonprofit organization Arts Fighting Cancer with a mission to promote the arts while benefiting the Cancer Relief Fund. From 2006 to 2011, he served in multiple roles as a founding artistic director, CEO, chairman of the board, and president of the Dallas Film Society, which hosts the Dallas International Film Festival, one of the top 30 film festivals in North America. Michael has been named one of the nation's top 10 film festival programmers in the world. In 2011, Michael, along with his partners Melina McKinnon and Richard Saunders, formed the Trinity Diversified Film Fund Advisors to provide short-term marketing funding for feature films. And he is currently launching Red Carpet Crowd, a crowdfunding portal aimed at the film entertainment industry. Everybody, please welcome Michael Cain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. It's good actually to be back in this facility. This is such a nice spot for Dallas for creative minds to get together and to get film into the picture. It's really great to see that. How many of you actually earn a living working in the film industry right now? Do you mind raising your hands? How many of you want to earn a living working in the film industry? All right, I've been blessed to be able to be involved in the film industry. And can y'all hear me okay? I was in commercial real estate back in the 80s and got very lucky in 1986 and went bankrupt along with the governor and the rest of the state when the real estate went down the tubes, and I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And when you're that far in debt, you kind of have a lot of options, because at that point it doesn't matter what you do. You're never going to work your way out of the debt. And I just said, what's my passion? And passion is film. And it's always been film. I've always been that guy who knew, you know, the actors and directors and who did this movie. I was that boring guy at the party who'd always interrupt every movie that was showing. So I got accepted to the American Film Institute and became the commencement speaker after the first year. I don't think I knew or they knew what a good fit it was. You're supposed to produce 3 projects when you go to AFI your first year. I did 7. It's all I did. My car got repossessed, I think, the first week I was out there, so I did 7 without a car in Los Angeles. So I understood how to work a computer and a cell phone really well, which are good skills for a filmmaker. And essentially, I've been lucky enough to earn a living doing it ever since, in some way. I've figured out, moving through the different medias, how to earn a living and to be able to take care of a family. I was going to say, if at any point, and let's see if I do this right the first time, if at any point I am not totally coherent, oh yeah, point that way, it's because of that. I had a baby 10 days ago, and I don't think I've slept in a few weeks, so that's my wife and Athena, and then Delphine, who I'm just remembering her name, Delphine. So, and there's no story behind her name. My wife just thought it was pretty. But anyway, she decided to keep us up till 6 a.m. this morning for no good reason. I can't figure out what it was. But that's why I do this. And this is a little bit about us. I'm very lucky also to work with my wife, who's my partner, who's one of the sharpest people that I've ever met. And everything that I've essentially ever started, at some point or another, she joined in. reluctantly many times, and then ended up being the best partner I could have. She's got an MBA from SMU and very sharp in fundraising, helped launch the Deep Ellum Film Festival, the Dallas International Film Festival, the Santa Monica Film Festival, M3 Films, which is making movies with a mission, is her. It's a woman-owned company that I'm president of, but essentially she's my boss. And then Trinity Diversified Film Fund advisors, and I say advisors because we don't actually directly invest money. We work with different groups to invest their money. And so these came from people who had supported us when we started the Dallas International Film Festival, and when after 5 years I left, they asked what I was going to do, and I was lucky enough that they said, we'll support you. So I've helped guide them through about $30 million worth of investments. We tend to have people come in that we advise, filmmakers, many times who are looking to present their packages. Some of them we get involved with, some of them we just connect them with people. Most of the times we connect them with people. We also advise people and say, is this a really good idea? Is this something that you're willing to live with for the next 5 years? Because the average film really takes 7 years to get going, and to get it going and out, if it gets going, 7 years. And that's a long time to live with something, so you better be passionate about it, and you better want to wake up with the people that you're working with every day for years. And that's the fun thing about it, though, too. It's a collaborative effort. They mentioned Jobs up there, which is a film that our company got involved in at the very end. The Ashton Kutcher version, not the one that's coming out this next week. But that was funded by a Dallas company. It was their first movie, and I think they actually did a really great job for a first film. Trinity Diversified Film Fund looks to get involved in P&A, which is prints and advertising. It's sort of an antiquated term, really, since there aren't really prints. But it's last money in, it's first money out. We like that positioning. We take a portfolio approach to funding so that we'll get involved with some movies early on. We like to really be a player in the film if we're going to do it. It's not the kind of thing where we just passively hand over our money. We actually like to be involved, and that's why it's very important the people that we work with. I co-founded the Dallas Film Society, the Deep Ellum Film Festival, took over the Santa Monica Film Festival. That's my way of saying that I've had 10,000 plus films pass through my team's hands. And we learned a lot about what worked and what didn't work. And we learned which films sold and which films didn't sell. And one of the frustrating things about this was we learned that so many filmmakers enter this without a plan. They have this sort of great idea of, I'm going to make this movie, it's going to get into Sundance, it's going to win the special jury prize, it's going to get picked up by HBO, and then it's going to be on, and then I'm just going to be funded. I'm going to make all my movies from that point forward. So, and that's not the reality of it. So what I'm sort of bringing to this finance equation is that you have to think of the film all the way through the moment that you're walking away from it at some point, and you have to be very protective over investors' money. I think the things that we really understand are what are investors looking for in these projects, because we all want investors. We'd like to have the same group of people stick with us forever. Why do we want to cultivate a new group if we can just take care of the ones we have? We want to give them honest expectations, and so we really need to understand what the industry is like. Most of that stuff I made up. Okay, no, there's the TV Junkie is the film that I came into Sundance with that dream. I said, we're going to take 3,000 hours of footage, we're going to make a documentary, we're going to get in Sundance. We did, but that was the fluke, and that's why I advise this group of people not to be like me. We got lucky, HBO bought the movie, there's an educational version we did with the New York Times. It kind of worked everything according to plan, but it was not a thought out plan. And so from that point forward, I sort of dedicated myself to understanding the last part of the equation, which is distribution, and why I was so excited that this started with distribution today. Because if you're a filmmaker and if you just want to be an artist and be a filmmaker, that's fantastic. I applaud that. I think it's great. If, on the other hand, you want to take in people's money, and that could be your friends, family, crowdfunding campaigns. You really need to understand the whole picture and increase the chances of you returning their money to them at some point, or let them know you're not going to get your money back. This isn't what this is about. And we invested in a film recently that actually premiered at Sundance, and Racing Extinction. It's a film Luis Sayhoyos directed. He directed The Cove and won the Academy Award for that. And he raised all of his money, but with no one receiving any financial return, and raised a lot of money doing that. But it was just up front, saying to the people, here's what we're doing, why we're doing it, and no, you're not going to get your money back. And it's amazing how many other people I've been approached by that who tell me that for me, and I'm like, oh, how nice. They're telling me up front, we're not getting our money back. You won't find a lot of people investing that unless you're in sort of charitable sort of projects, but they do exist. My wife also started the philanthropy fund that's at the Dallas Foundation that people raise money through, and Stanley Marcus is a project that we're working on right now. One of the lead creatives behind Neiman Marcus. We just finished a film called The Stark Project, which is now called the Stark Club. That's about an iconic club here in Dallas in the 1980s that's within a week of being finished finally. And then we start working on a TV series. She also, Horton Foote, is working on a project. They've raised money through the Philanthropy Fund for Horton Foote. We like things that put Texas and Dallas on a pedestal. We really like filmmakers and projects that have Texas ties. Here's the current situation, and everyone knows these, but small businesses, film and media, are always looking for funding. That's just if I ask you to raise your hand, who's looking for money, most of you would raise your hand. It's a fragmented industry. It's difficult to get out to a large group of people. Part of that has to do, particularly with fundraising, with the way that it's been set up to the SEC since the 1930s. You have not been able to approach anyone other than accredited investors if you put together a PPM and an LLC to raise money. Basically, that limitation takes you out of the market of the majority, the 98% of America. There's how many of you are accredited investors? There you go. There's a very few accredited investors in the world, because you have to have $1 million worth of assets, excluding your home. You have to have an income of at least $250,000 a year for 3 years, or you could earn $350,000 a year as a couple for 2 years. So honestly, 98% of America is not in that league. So whenever you're raising money, you haven't had the opportunity to reach out to everybody. They've also made it really complicated. PPMs, how many of you have ever created a PPM? It's an expensive ordeal. It's sort of an antiquated idea, and I think what's happened recently, particularly with equity crowdfunding, is going to allow us to bypass that and save that money that you were going to have to spend with attorneys and put that to some degree into the marketing of the film. By the way, I'm not saying don't use attorneys. I'm saying a PPM is going to become kind of an outdated. It's still a great idea to have a good friend who's an attorney. And as I said, the last thing is that films are mostly being produced without a solid plan all the way through delivery of the film. Now, there's an interesting Sundance infographic that tells you a little bit about, they ran through all the films that have gone through Sundance over the last 5 years, and you can find this online too, but it's a fascinating report. If you look at this last year, for instance, over 4,000 films that were submitted, both between domestic and international. It's a strong number. I think South by Southwest had over 5,000 this last year, but it also includes short films, and there's a lot of short films out there in the world. The amount of money, if you go down to 2014, the blue, all the films that came in, $3.04 billion. The ones that didn't get in represent $2.95 billion worth of money that was raised and spent. So, and it's interesting, it hovers around 89 million, the amount of money that is spent on the approximately 150 films that get into Sundance. So that's a bad sign for investors, right off the bat. If you wonder why many times you approach people for money and they go, I got burnt in this day, most people get burnt. because expectations aren't set up correctly so that people understand why they're investing in a project or a filmmaker or a cause or an idea. The good news is a lot of filmmakers got employed. So if you look at that, over 400,000 filmmakers that were employed in all those projects, approximately almost 12,000 of the films that got in. That's nice to keep the film industry working. The amount of films that got distribution deals, so 75 would represent about 50% of the films that went through. I have to say I think that number's really inflated because of the fact that Sundance created Sundance Selects and now has their own sort of distribution where they release films, and a lot of times they'll go after great movies because they've had them in, but there's no real money going back to the filmmakers. I'm not speaking poorly of Sundance. Thank goodness they're getting the movies out and at least creating some potential, and their strong marketing power is a big part of what they've got going for them. Their name behind your movie can mean something to you in different ancillary markets. This gives you an idea, the biggest sales that went through. You know, if you look at The Kids Are All Right, they spent $4.8 million. They did $20.8 million at the box office. And just a reminder, what you do at the box office doesn't mean the filmmaker gets that at the end of the day. Everyone always gets excited about how much money that they may have made at the box office. Well, by the time everyone takes their share out of that, the exhibitor, the distributor, the marketing costs that they put up front, the share that makes it back to the filmmaker, which can be up to 2 years down the road, it will be a small piece of that, or they may have been bought out for that $4.8 million. If you look down to the details that Weinstein did, they spent $17.5 million, including a marketing commitment. They got back $63,000 at the box office. So it doesn't always work out, and the Weinsteins are probably some of the best ones. You know, Our Idiot Brother, $21 million. They did 24 at the box office. Sessions, that a good friend of ours produced, did 6 at the box office. I can tell you that that movie cost about just over $1 million. So at the end of the day, the filmmakers did well. This doesn't take into account what the filmmakers spent on it. It just takes on what they were purchased for. Don Juan, Relativity Media, they spent 29, they got back 24.4. Who knows what it did on the other markets, but Relativity is also the company that is filing for bankruptcy protection over this last week, and I can't tell you how many hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to cost. It's not as much as, for instance, that the head of Relativity lost in his previous job, which was several $billion, but it could be. It's interesting that you can keep getting money if you lose money in this industry or in other industries. The big thing I think that comes out of this whole page actually is at the very bottom where it says less than 2% of the people who invested their money in films get it back. So what I'd like to challenge Dallas and Texas is let's be part of that 2%. Let's figure out the way up front that we're being smart about taking care of the investors' money or our own money. We all would like to put our children through good schools and have a retirement someday and wake up on some beach. There's ways to do that, but it means really thinking it through and researching it. I bring up crowdfunding because crowdfunding, historically, you didn't have to pay the money back. That's been a big part of it. It's been a huge industry. You know, I use Kickstarter as an example, but Kickstarter is one of 500 crowdfunding sites and approximately $5.6 billion that have been raised through crowdfunding. That's with no ownership, and basically besides a T-shirt, an invitation to an event, a postcard, your name on a website, there hasn't been really returned, but there's been no promise of a return. That's the interesting thing about it, is the people who get on it aren't saying you're going to get your money back. In some ways, that's been limiting why more money hasn't been raised. But if you look at the categories of the 90,000 projects that have been successfully funded, 91%, over 91, technology, games, design, film and video, fashion, and music. Of the successful projects, film has the highest percentage at 17,000 out of 43,000. So it still doesn't mean you're automatically going to get your money back. But at the end of the day, it should be a part of the way that you raise money. And I'm not saying always the way you raise all the money, but sometimes it's the way you proof of concept, you get a group of people behind you, you start to find out if the concept's going to fly, you get enough followers. It also gives you something to go to the next group of funding to approach. That's Kickstarter to give you an idea also how much it's increasing every year. You know, they raised $500 million in 2014. So, but once again, without any of this being repaid. And you are seeing the government starting to stick their nose into Kickstarter and Indiegogo a little bit more to go, are these getting finished? Is anyone delivering them? Is there any sort of, what's the relationship that Kickstarter has to these projects? So they're starting to revamp their websites so that your Kickstarter campaign becomes part of a long-term relationship with those people. In 2012, because of the success, early success of crowdfunding, and also I would say because of Obama's incredible success with crowdfunding, how much money he raised, like $5 at a time, they decided let's make it so the businesses can use this. So they stepped in, created the Jobs Act, Jumpstart Our Business Startups, and basically allowing non-accredited and accredited investors to participate in smaller offerings. They found success, $662 million from accredited investors, mostly in real estate and oil and gas. You can see that, you know, the director of research at UC Berkeley says this is going to be a $93 billion industry by 2025. I would completely agree. I think actually he may be underestimating it with how exponentially it's increasing. 34.7% increase in the first quarter of this year from the last quarter of last year. So investors are really liking this, particularly accredited investors. It's a way for them to look at a lot of projects quickly, and the correct portals, the websites and the platforms who really do the analysis and who don't let every project get on are the ones who we're seeing the most success with. Angel List is just one example of this, but you know, 104 million, 243 startups, 2,673 investors. I mean, that's nothing if you go back and look at the amount of investors that are investing in Kickstarter projects. Oh yeah, sure, it's not on that card. But it's about 2.3 million people are investing using Kickstarter right now. And of those, no, I'm sorry, it's about 10 million, and about 2.3 are investing in more than one project. So people who like to do it a lot. How many of you have either raised money or put money into a crowdfunding? Yeah, I think for this group of people, we understand how it works, and they do a good job with those sites. So what happened, and the Jobs Act passed with the intent of letting unaccredited investors to invest. They couldn't work out the wording. Everyone's so afraid of the fact that mom and pops and us are going to take our life savings or our retirement and invest it and lose it. And that's there, because accredited investors must know something that non-accredited investors don't know. And that's not actually accurate, but it is, having more money makes you smarter. That would be the basic way that the government's approaching this. So they couldn't make it work, so what ended up happening was on a state-by-state basis, they began creating intrastate crowdfunding exemptions, allowing you to have investors within that state invest in projects that would be within that state. So this intrastate exemption allows the non-accredited investors to invest alongside accredited investors. So it's a big change, and it only happened last November. This is less than a year old. And Texas is the 13th state to step in, and I think they did it the really smart way. They actually learned from the other 12 states what the other 12 states did wrong, because those states sort of set themselves up for failure in many ways and made it so that they had something going, but they also would have another statute that would essentially nullify it if you did it. So they couldn't quite figure it out. So Texas, I think, has gotten it correct. So as of November 19th, the 13th and largest state, there's 20 million non-accredited investors in this state alone. That's double. I mean, we're the third largest state also with California and New York. It hasn't passed in California yet. It hasn't passed in New York yet. But I would expect that ultimately all 50 states will have some sort of interstate crowdfunding exemption. You might at the exact same time see the Jobs Act, the SEC actually work out the correct terminology to allow you to invest across state lines. But it hasn't happened yet, but it's getting close. You can raise up to $1 million for a project. No investor can put more than $5,000 into an investment who's non-accredited, and accredited investors can put in anything they want. We'll probably see that change pretty quickly. Some states allow you to raise $2 million. They allow people to put in $10,000. So it's all working itself out. It's such a nascent industry at this point, but everyone wants to take it a very cautious approach, because the worst thing we can do is find out that all these people have somehow gone in with bad deals and they've ripped off the public. And that's what the SEC and everyone else is really being protective over. Texas also doesn't want the federal SEC to step in and start to dictate how they're going to do things. So our company Trinity is launching our first portal, which should be up in September. You have to go through a process. You have to get registered with the state. You have to get approved, a U4, and then they do background checks and make sure everyone's okay, because essentially you're in the securities business at that point, but you're not licensed to be in the securities business. And that's a bit of the scary part of it. You know, they're going to be really cautious. There's several hundred people applying to get this status right now. We're working with the partner who is delivering us all the way through, because they've already had 2 sites that they've helped launch. But they see 20 million potential investors in Texas, or $100 billion of industry. We're an online investment platform. Entertainment sector is where we're starting. Ultimately, our goal is to have a diversified portfolio for ourselves and also be working in a couple of other platform ideas that we really like. We want to take the seasoned crowd who are already using crowdfunding and work them over into equity, where they can actually have ownership of a project. And by the way, $1 million that you can raise doesn't mean it's a $1 million project. You could raise 10% of your budget, and that's $1 million. You could raise $500,000, because that's all you want to do. When we spoke to the SEC and the Texas Film Commission, they were both unaware of this for film. They were just like, we never thought about it for film, but it makes sense. We thought about it for oil and gas. We thought about it for real estate, all the naturals, technology, but we had no idea film, because film fits the pattern. It's the right size. And originally, even with the Film Commission, they were hesitant, because they were like, you know, we really need to spend our time on bringing big Hollywood movies to Texas. We need to employ a lot of people. We need to you know, spend our money that way with the incentives. And they called back a couple of days later, and they're like, we get it. This is about creating a tax base here in Texas. This is about nurturing a film community here in Texas. So how do we help? And they've given us so much information, which you can always request, but like of every project that received funding for the last 5 years. And for you to look that through and see the patterns of who are getting incentives from the state is really fascinating information. These are I wouldn't call them the competition. We've never believed in competition. The same with the film festivals. We always believe we're co-competitors. We're all just working in the same space to ideally create a larger investment and film community. But you see real estate, oil and gas, lending, and restaurant are the focuses right now. So we will be the first one that will be in the film and media space. It wouldn't surprise me if there weren't others at some point or another, because, for instance, one area that Texas is really big on are faith-based films, you know, inspirational movies. Groups like Funimation who put these out, you know, that's a natural funding source with a very specific group of people who would like to support those kind of movies and see that kind of content make it out. There's several genre-based. I mean, if you think about it, you've also got Robert Rodriguez, who's got El Rey, The Channel. They're looking for projects. Projects are looking for funding. So there's natural ways to approach this. It said we're entering a $270 million space that over the last 2 years within the film industry and what received incentives. That isn't the entire picture. That's the ones that we can look at that were receive funding from the state. We work in partnerships, the same thing we did with the Dallas International Film Festival, where we like to align with different groups and figure out ways to make it be a win-win for them. It's part of that not being competitors, but being co-competitors. The fees generally, and we're still working this all out because the state is still working this out, but we're most likely charging 6% on the money that passes through our portal. We're earmarking 1% of that to go back into the film industry, and we've had conversations with the Dallas Film Commission and different groups who are interested in us putting money aside to help them. The Dallas International Film Festival for film grants for filmmakers. I mean, if it works, we want it to work for everybody. This is the first rough version of our site. That's a temp image that has now been replaced, but everybody knows what movies that's from, right? There you go. So we'll have that up, and actually you're welcome to, Jeff can maybe relay that out when we have, but basically redcarpetcrowd.com will be the site, but it should launch in September. You literally turn your site over to the SEC, and they run through everything with the portal to make sure that it works the way they want it to work before you launch. These are basically our technology partners. Community Leader launched the first site here in Texas. They've launched 27 sites across the country. They have a strong support team as far as due diligence, because you aren't just launching a site, you're also then saying, okay, if you want to invest, we need to know you're a Texas resident. We've got to do slight background checks. If you want, as an entrepreneur, raise money, we've got to do a bad actor check on you. So that's there's a lot of due diligence that works. But so these are some of our partners. These are some of the groups they work with, included in crowdfunding marketing. These are some of the groups that we're working with also. And then our plan is to continue to launch Red Carpet in other states until the point when there's the ability to go nationwide with it. I think that time, it could be even the end of this year, but most likely it's 2017. So I always like to ask people, or to think about one thing, which is for the projects you're making, who are you making your film for at the end of the day? What is the audience that you're looking to put this film in front of? Where are they going to see it? Because so many people come in and you say, so tell me about your children's movie, and who's going to watch it, and tell me where it's going to be, you know? And the answer so many times is, well, it'll be in a theater, and it'll be like 2,000 screens, and it's for everybody. It's for, like, they could be 7 and they could be 70. And you're like, all right, you need to fine-tune it a little. And so our portal works, and we call it 3 different tiers, but essentially some projects are going to come in and they're going to have no attachments. They're going to literally be an idea and a concept. We're going to not work with that for raising money, but we're going to ideally align them with other people who can help bring them to the next 2 tiers. The next one is they have some great attachments, they've got some of the financial paperwork, but they're once again not ready to move up. And then the first tier, which are they've got cast in place, they've got a seasoned director-producer team, they understand their distribution model and where they're going to go. So we literally sit down with them and evaluate their projects and help guide them through. And then what kind of return are you offering? And this has to do a lot with that promise that you make to the investors in the beginning. We say there's 3 kinds of return on investment. There's the internal rate of return, which is I give you $10,000, you give me back how much? That's the internal rate of return. What percentage return do I get over what I got, or how much do I lose over what I have? There's the external rate of return, which is what is the good that I do for the world? How am I changing the world through my film? And how am I helping this group of filmmakers go to the next level? Because sometimes most of these films that pass through, you're going to friends and families to help you to get to that next place. Maybe that's your 20 or 30%. And then the third kind of rate of return is eternal rate of return. Some people want their name to be out there. Some people want to do faith-based films because that touches them in the heart, and that's the longevity they want to go. And so sometimes it's a mixture of those three. It doesn't always have to be you're getting your money back plus the standard 20%, plus then we split it out. You can be like, that's the goal. We're also going to be showing to 10,000 school children drug addiction film. It's going to help them change their lives. So there's many different ways, but it's all about that promise that you make when you raise your financing. That's sort of it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Michael. We really appreciate it. For anyone who is tweeting live about this or posting, it's hashtag film innovation. Yes, okay. We're going to go into a brainstorm session here in just a moment about financing media and film projects. And then after that, we're going to serve you lunch, okay? And just to go through the agenda real quick, we're going to do 45 minutes, but might cut it down to 30 with lunch because we've been running a little long, so just to shape things up. And then after we do the brainstorming and lunch, we're also then going to put all these great ideas onto the whiteboard and share it to people on live streaming, and of course have a great recording of it. So on this next section, if team leaders could please keep real good track of the ideas that are coming your way, so we don't lose any just great ideas within 5 people talking, but written down so we can share on the whiteboard. I'd appreciate that. And you can also find all this information on my website, my company's website, imaginationmediastudios.com. We'll continue the discussion there. We'll follow up, and we can also find out about Michael's site. You're going to make sure the site's all ready to go, and I'll announce that on imaginationmediastudios.com. All right, so let's brainstorm. I'll make sure if we lost a leader, I'll get another one.